Energy, ki. This is the true most powerful force in the Dragon Ball universe. Actually, the word force is applicable in this case because Toriyama got his idea from ki from the same principles that George Lucas did for the Force in Star Wars. Ancient Oriental philosophies is the core, the root of ki energy, and the way that Toriyama chooses to implement it into Dragon Ball has always been something that fans, even outside of the East, have loved. We all love huge ki blasts and explosions and near falls. It's what makes Dragon Ball fun. So on this edition of Dragon Ball In Depth, I want to give you a better understanding of the root of what ki is and how Toriyama uses it and the importance of energy in the martial arts influence and themed Dragon Ball manga and of course the anime as well. Let's go. So if you've seen a lot of kung fu movies, or maybe you took martial arts, you know that the concepts of ki, whether it be in Dragon Ball or any other anime or even any form of fiction in Japan, is derived from the Chinese chi. Now, if you're actually reading the Dragon Ball manga, the Viz translation of the manga, they actually use the word chi. You could interchange chi and ki all you want to. Ki is the Japanese sort of, inheritance of the word chi, but for the manga, Viz chose chi. It's the same thing, but just understand if you're watching a Dragon Ball anime, they're going to refer to it as ki. Now, the Japanese do have different versions of the word ki, but I want to focus on the main one here. And the essential idea behind ki is, in a funny way, sort of like what George Lucas tried to put over with the midichlorians. And I know a lot of Star Wars fans hated the concept of midichlorians because it took away from this magical force energy. But if you look into the original Oriental text, you'll find out some really interesting stuff about ki, that essentially what it says is that the existence of all life is based on minuscule particles, maybe even smaller than microscopic particles, that balance and control the universe. Again, it sounds an awful lot like the Force. It really does. Now, there is another similar definition to ki in Japanese culture, which really exemplifies Dragon Ball even more so, and that is the manifestation of willpower, of fighting spirit, so to speak. You could call it courage or bravery or valor. There's a lot of different words for it, but it's when somebody shows they're willing to fight for what they believe in and overcome their obstacles and not give up. Time and time again, Goku and the other characters of Dragon Ball, well, usually it's Goku, they oftentimes surpass their limitations, whether it be with discovering new power, a new transformation, breaking past their own knowledge and their limitations, and pushing their body to the absolute max. We see it time and time again in Dragon Ball. Now, if you've watched a lot of my videos, you know that I love talking about the ideas and the influences that Toriyama took from, and we've talked in the past about how Toriyama is and was a huge fan of cinema, not just Western cinema, but also a massive fan of kung fu films, specifically Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee. One of the common themes that we see time and time from these kung fu movies or these gong fu movies are the hero who's training under a master and learning how to tap into his secret power and control his ki, his energy. And then typically by the end of the movie, he learns how to do it, taps into a new power, and probably most likely defeats the grand villain of the film. And we all have a happy ending. It's a theme and formula that was used time and time again with these movies. Toriyama borrows from it heavily in Dragon Ball. A good example of Toriyama borrowing heavily from a movie, you gotta check out 1983's Zoo Warriors from the Magic Mountain, a Chinese/Hong Kong film that has characters doing ki blasts and flying and having these big epic battles. We've got hermits and wizards and everything that kind of makes the Dragon Ball series so well known. It's in this movie and it came out a year before Toriyama started his manga. So it's pretty easy to figure out that this man was most likely influenced heavily by this and other films of the time. But really this one, because this took the battle to a new level when it came to special effects and, epicness of battle. And yeah, the special effects don't really hold up, but it is from 1983, so you got to give them credit for at least trying, and they definitely did the best they could. So when it comes to ki, one thing you have to understand about it, about energy, whether it be the real philosophy or what's in Dragon Ball, is that ki cannot be seen by the naked eye. Although some believe that you can see it if you develop something called the Tenmei, or the third eye. If you look into a lot of Taoist beliefs and things like that, you can read up more on that third eye and see how it not only affects ki, but also helped to influence Toriyama in the creation of the character of Ten Shinhan in Dragon Ball as well. Now, when it comes to us, the reader or the viewer of Dragon Ball, it's going to be a lot harder for us to get invested into a fight involving ki if every molecule is invisible. We have to just pretend things are there, and that wouldn't really work. So what Toriyama has done is that instead of just expressing the ki by it being invisible, he actually gave it a shape and a form. So what you are actually seeing when characters do ki attacks is that they're able to take these molecules and ignite them into pure concentrated energy, sort of like a heat, and fire them on their opponents, which, if done in real life, hypothetically speaking, would never actually show any sort of form. But in the Dragon Ball manga, Toriyama himself has chosen to give it a form to represent its power. He talks about this in detail in an interview he did for the 2009 Super Exciting Guide, where he says, and I quote, "For the Kamehameha, I thought I'd see if I could express ki energy which can't be seen with the naked eye in a shonen sort of way." And that's where the ki blast of Dragon Ball originated from. Now, of course, when Toriyama was drawing his manga, the original manga in Shonen Jump and in the original sort of Tankoban releases was mostly black and white, so you couldn't really see the color of the ki in every single page. However, the anime adaptation of Dragon Ball and Z and the subsequent series all chose to illustrate ki with different colors. Obviously, this was Toei Animation using some artistic liberty and sort of giving Dragon Ball this sort of vibrant and colorful look, which is why you have characters using ki of all different kinds of colors. We've seen yellow, red, blue, green, there's all kinds of different energy. And the colors of the energy also have sort of representation in some ways of Taoism and things like that, but a lot of it was just them being creative for the show. But also be aware that the animators who worked on this show also were just as aware as Toriyama was of the secrets of ki, and they kind of gave their own touch to it. Toriyama himself has admitted several times that when it comes to coloring, a lot of times it's whatever he has on his desk. For example, when he worked on Dragon Quest, he colored some of the slimes blue and some of them green, and throughout the years, he actually forgot what the original color of the slimes were. Toriyama forgot that. So you'll see ki represented in so many different colors, and sometimes you'll have like the villains have more of a reddish kind of darkish evil ki, and the good guys will have more of a white kind of light blue kind of ki. That would make sense, except that as the series progresses, we see all kinds of different colors. In fact, in Dragon Ball GT, Goku uses a red Kamehameha, which looks freaking awesome, but that of course symbolizes the power he has in GT and the fury behind his strength in SS4 and, well, the 10 times Kamehameha. Now, throughout the years, many have wondered, and not just Dragon Ball fans, but also other forms of manga and anime, why do the characters in, Eastern storytelling always chant the names of the moves? Why is it that they say stuff like Kamehameha and Kienzan and Makanko Sapo, or even, Hadoken in Street Fighter? Like, it's always there. Why do the characters chant the name? Well, it is my understanding that the reason why they do it is not just to make the scene seem cooler and more epic with, them screaming the name of the move, so that way there's familiarity with the reader, but also it presents a psychological advantage. Obviously, if you're using ki in your day-to-day combat, whether you take martial arts or not, or you study it, or you do meditation or whatever, sometimes it helps to actually say what you want to do sort of under your breath. But for the purposes of manga or anime, to give it that extra kick, and yeah, it's for dramatic purposes, but there is a root to it. It's just that in real life, you normally don't have people screaming these moves out like at the top of their lungs, like Goku's done with the Kaioken and other moves like that. Now, as I said earlier, when it comes to ki, there's different kinds of ki, but there are two specific kinds in Dragon Ball that I want to briefly discuss. One of them is Genki, and the other is God Ki, which was introduced in Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods and in Dragon Ball Super. So with Genki, this is the energy that Goku uses to summon up power for the Genki Dama, the spirit bomb. Genki is not traditional ki. I've talked about this in the past, but not so in depth, so I'll get more into it now. Genki represents health energy. It represents the ability to be positive, strong, and yes, spiritual, which is why calling it the spirit bomb is not that diverse of a translation as many would lead you to believe. It's not the same. Many fans have always said, well, why doesn't Goku just use the Genki Dama or the spirit bomb to summon the android's power? Well, the androids, the artificial humans, they may have unlimited ki, but they do not have unlimited Genki. See what I'm saying? They don't have unlimited health. They are mortals, and they can get sick like everybody else can, presumably. So the energy Goku is getting is Genki, health energy, spirit from the waters and trees and lakes and animals, and of course the humans as well. And it does give you more energy the more powerful you are, but it's not an unlimited supply, so please understand that. Later on I might do a separate video specifically on the Genki Dama, but that's pretty much the basics. And then we have, of course, God Ki, which is what, you know, Beerus introduced in Battle of Gods. Now, when it comes to God Ki, this is essentially a celestial level of energy. It's not one that mortals can typically attain unless they tap into God power, like, of course, the powers that Goku would garner in Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods, and then as Dragon Ball Super progressed, you know, he would get more and more powerful. But I digress. Beerus using God Ki is basically just an enhanced version of regular ki for the gods. There's no real difference or anything significant when it comes to the history of God Ki in Taoist culture, but there certainly is history when it comes to the history of gods and mortals in Taoist culture. But the way that Toriyama chooses to use God Ki in the Dragon Ball series is much more basic. It's just a different kind of energy, a different kind of ki, and presumably it is more powerful. However, we've seen mortals be able to fight other gods like Goku and Beerus, and of course Golden Frieza fighting SS Blue Goku. SS Blue Goku had God Ki, Golden Frieza did not, and he still was able to damage Goku. So you don't have to be a person who understands and uses God Ki to hurt somebody else that has God Ki. That's one big misconception. Basically, in Dragon Ball, it's just a higher form of energy. There might be more to it in the secret Buddhist roots, but it's not really that complicated when it comes to the way it's used in Dragon Ball, and I think people do kind of overcomplicate it. But in the future, I may do a more in-depth video on that, as well as Hakai energy, because they're pretty cool concepts that Toriyama introduced recently that could be, you know, something interesting to talk about in my opinion. So with that being said, I will bring this video to an end. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you learned more about ki and energy and where Toriyama got the ideas from and what it actually means in Dragon Ball. Thank you, take care of yourself and each other.